Assalamu alaikum student. Today we will discuss an important topic. Before we are going on a topic, let's introduce something new. That nothing lives forever and life continues because all living things are able to produce copies of themselves. If living things did not reproduce themselves, then before long there would be none left. Each plant and animal grew older and finally died. It would not be replaced. Eventually, all the different kinds of plants and animals would die out. They would become extinct. But here the flower in plants, they have some structures from which they reproduce by themselves. Now most plant, including trees, reproduce by means of seed, and seed made because of what is called the sexual reproduction. In plants, it can also produce seed, and flowers have a structure that is for the fertilization. It is the flower which contains the reproductive organ and fertilization takes place. Clear? The flower. The flower is the reproductive part of flowering plants. Flowers are also called the bloom or blossom of a plant. Flowers have petals. Inside the part of the flower that has petals, and petals are the part which produce pollen and seeds. The flowers is the seat of sexual reproduction. The primary purpose of a flower is reproduction. Since the flowers are the reproductive organ of plant. Clear, student? Now here's the parts of flower. Although flowers vary in size, shape and color, but all flowers have some basic parts. The main parts of a flower are pedicel and thalamus, calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium. Pedicel and thalamus. Now, the flower is born on a stalk called pedicel. The uppermost end of the pedicel is somewhat swollen. This swollen part of the pedicel is known as the thalamus. It bears all the floral of a flower, and that flower have some basic parts. Clear? Now the another whorl is calyx. It is the first and outermost whorl of flower. It consists of leaf-like structures called sepals. Sepals are generally green in color and manufacture food and supply it to other floral part. They also protect the new delicate inner parts of the flower buds. Here, look at this picture. These are the sepals. It will protect the flower during bud condition. And the petals are covered by a green like part is called the sepals. And these sepals form the calyx. Clear, student? Now the corolla. It is the second rule of the flower. Each segment of the corolla is known as petal. Petals are usually bright colored due to the presence of pigments. The bright color, sweet smell, and nectar which attract the insects toward the flower. And because when the insects attract the flower, it helps in the pollination. Androecium. Now it is the third rule, which is composed of one or more male reproductive organ called stamen. Each stamen consists of a thin stalk or filament and a two-lobed head called the anther. This is the anther. In this picture, you have clearly seen these are the anthers. These are the anthers. Clear? And in a stalk, this is the filament. Clear, student? Each anther has a two pollen sacs which are filled with pollen grains. The pollen grains are minute in size. They are the male reproductive cells that part in reproduction. Now the gynoecium or pistils. The gynoecium is the fourth rule, which is composed of one or more female reproductive organ. Androecium is the male reproductive organ, and in the flower, gynoecium is the female reproductive organ called carpels. Each carpels consists of an ovary, stigma, style. Now stigma is the terminal part. Look at this flower. In this flower, stigma is the terminal part of the pistil. This is the style and this is the ovary. Right? This is the female reproductive organ of flower. The stigma is the sticky, rough and hairy. It is meant for receiving pollen grains during the pollination. Clear, student? Now the style. Style is a thread-like structure which connects the stigma with the ovary. Clear? This is the stigma, style and the ovary wall containing ovule. The ovary is the basal swollen part. Ovary is the basal swollen part of the pistil. The ovary bears the ovules, right? And a tissue called the placenta. Each ovule contains the female reproductive cells, that is the ovum. Ovary contains ovules and ovum, right? And this is the style. It is meant for raising the level of stigma, right? This stigma bears the pollen grains which goes downward towards the ovary, and ovary have on ovules. Clear? Now the ovary of the flower develops into the fruits and the ovules in it become seeds after fertilization. Clear, student? This is about the flower reproduction, how the reproduction takes place and what is the role of the parts of the flower in the reproduction. Clear, student?